regardless, whoever wins the championship in this new format is going to have an asterisk. It just has to happen because of the way this season goes. And I think a lot of people talked about that. A lot of commentators have been on it. But that's just the fact of the matter, is that whoever wins this year, it's going to be under certain special circumstances. So why not make it a different playoff? Why not distinguish it from your regular NBA playoff? We don't have to try and recreate the normal NBA playoff setting. The Larry O'Brien Trophy is going to have an asterisk next to it for whatever team has it. So let's make it quick. Let's make it exciting. 3 games, that's amazing because every game is in a game 5 through 7. Welcome to the ChadBurn Show, brought to you by M. Chad Baldwin. Welcome to the ChadBurn Show. I am your host, M. ChadBurn, and we are still continuing to record live from the household of ChadBurn and the Baldwins as we just continue to wait out this pandemic. Things are starting to ease up here in Canada. It's starting to look like there is a light at the end of the tunnel, but we still need to be safe. We need to make sure we're protecting those that are more vulnerable than us and just giving them the opportunities to heal through all this. So we are inside. We're not at Julien Renvoise's recording studio, but we're going to continue to make it work and continue to give you good live content from here. Like I said from last week, the hair is crazy. Oh, man, barbers need to come back soon, man, because I am dying. This needs to get cut off soon. I don't even know how to manage it anymore. It's out of this world. But that's the other struggles from the home office. Other than that, we're just going to continue to blast on with sports and what we have to report and what we're going to talk today. So obviously the main topics we're going to be hitting on today that I want to discuss is one, the close to agreement and possibly voted in by Tuesday return of the NBA. Where it's going to be located, how they're going to play out the rest of the season, will they go straight into the playoffs, who's going to be in the playoffs, and so on, and what we'd like to see in this new form of the NBA. And two, because it's all over social media, it's a new show on television, it's related to sports. I find it awesome because it brings back childhood memories. Ultimate Tag, we're going to go a little bit into that and discuss how we like it and why we like watching it and things I see similarities to other shows, but that's also got to be discussed. Before we get into the sports, though, I just feel that given that I have a platform, limited as it is, to say something, I think it's important to be said. I want to acknowledge the riots going on to the death of George Floyd, the murder of George Floyd. I want to reiterate again, as a white male, I can never understand the struggle that the minorities in the black community go through. I will never be able to understand the fear and threat that a black male my age has every time they step out into certain communities in the United States and how they view the police. But I want to just acknowledge and say that this was an outright murder by an individual based on systemic racism in the United States. And as someone who is currently not living in the States but grew up there their entire lives, it breaks my heart to see that this is still ongoing and there's nothing been learned from the last 400 years in this country. We have a president who continues to stoke violence through his tweets, through supporting of this. We have people that continue to just become agnostic and indifferent to this because it is so constant and so relevant that we just see it as another act. This has to stop. And as someone who supports one party over the other, we need to have greater representation in our political system by these minority groups so that their voice can be heard and there actually can be changes made rather than the smile of white people, of people like me who just continue to say, hopefully it changes and that, nothing's done. Things need to happen to change because young men and women are being murdered in their streets by people that are supposed to be there to protect them. And with the riots going on right now, while I know there's pain for the small business owner and for those that are not embroiled in this conflict or feel they don't have a dog in this fight, that see this as unnecessary looting and violence, there has to be a reaction. This is something that is continuously going on. This is just something that was caught on camera. There's so many other instances that we hear about, that we know about, that are going on. And with the compounding effect of Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, and the death of Breonna, this has to be there has to be action. There has to be a drastic action to wake up America. And the fact that it's going across the entire country and cities everywhere impacted, I think that this is a necessary step to do it. This is hard for someone like me to talk about because I don't want to come across as feeling the pain, because I don't suffer this. I don't suffer justice. It's my job to try and help make change in the community that I'm a part of, which is the white majority community, and trying to educate those in my area to understand they need to listen and they need to try and place themselves in the other people's shoes, because we can't talk about it like it's something we know, because we don't live through it ever. We don't live through the injustice that minority communities, that black communities in the United States go through. We don't. And the only way that we can try and help and make forward is by listening, by giving them a seat at the table, by relinquishing our seats at the table to allow change, because clearly we're not doing good a job at it. We're clearly fucking it up. And we need to have other voices be heard to create change in the institutions that are designed to protect and serve every American citizen, every human being. Because we are all humans. Under whatever entity you believe in, under whatever God is yours, we are all created equal. We are all humans, and that is an American belief, an American right. And to just do harm those that live in your neighbors because of the color of skin, to just put distrust, it's disgusting, and something has to change. The fact, and then we relate this to sports, because the fact that we idolize athletes from the black community, yet because if they're not famous or they can't serve a purpose in a sport, they're now a threat to our safety, is ludicrous, is stupid, is just ignorant, and is a product of a lifelong system in place in the United States. And I pray and I hope that there's change and that there's light at the end of the tunnel for these communities, and this equality. As a member of the white community that has been able to enjoy the majority of life just with no risk, no danger to their life, that all has to change. And I hope that this comes across sincere, and my heart goes out to everyone affected throughout this. But to move from a somber note to sports again, I want to then talk about the NBA and go back to what we like to do to try and escape from the horrendousness that is going on in our life, and to try and have a quick break from it in order to just try and all be on the same plane and think about the stuff that we love, which is sports. I want to talk about the NBA, which is posed to possibly return in July. The aim to come back would be July 31st. The Board of Governors will be meeting on this upcoming Tuesday. We're releasing, obviously, on Monday, the 1st of June. There's hopes to have a meeting on June 2nd with the Board of Governors for the NBA to discuss about the return of the NBA season. The most likely scenario is that they are going to be playing at Walt Disney World at the Walt Disney ESPN Wide World of Sports. As we said in several episodes back, the two main locations that were possibly discussed to play would be in Las Vegas or at Walt Disney World. Obviously, you need a place where players can both live and play without needing to leave a general vicinity. Need to be able to have an area that you can contain, that you can make sure the virus will not get through or spread through. So that is the hope, is that it will be in Disney and they'll be able to play. There are still a lot of questions to be had, but at least we could possibly see a return of basketball. I also think it's amazing to see that Disney could win out on this, because obviously Disney owns ESPN. So what does that mean for broadcasting of the playoffs or the comeback? Would ESPN get all the games? Would TNT have a chance to broadcast? Would any of the major networks be able to get in on this? I think that type of contract dispute and how it goes, maybe it's shared, similar to how we saw the NFL draft get aired, where ESPN was splitting it with NFL Network, and they kind of formed together and joined a super broadcasting of it. Will it happen again between the Turner Media Networks and the Disney networks? But that's amazing. The idea is that we'll return between 20 to 22 teams, that would play in this end of the season. With those that made it at least 6 games from a playoff spot. So you'd obviously have the top 8 in each conference, followed by Sacramento, New Orleans, Phoenix, Portland, San Antonio, and then from the East, the Washington Wizards. If they were to go to 20 teams, and obviously San Antonio and Washington would be cut from that. So you would have the 8 teams from each conference plus 4 Western teams that would play in to have a chance to make it into the playoffs that they are proposing. Again, though, a lot of questions remain on how this would be feasible. Like, the main one is, how would foreign players get back to the country? Would there be a lift of travel for specific players? Could there be specific visas to get them in? Also, how long then do they have to quarantine before they can play with their team? Is it going to be 14 days? There's also those teams that play in cities where their practice facilities are, where there are still stay-at-home orders. Will there be special recognition to the NBA teams to go to their facilities to contain it in that one spot and be able to practice as a team, or will they continue to have to practice individually? Also, will they be able to have their families with them? How will they keep them safe? Is there enough testing? All of these questions are valid before they get into this whole new playoff or seasonal setting. And I think that, hopefully we get more clarity from the Board of Governors, but they need to take it all seriously. I know the perception of players getting testing now is not as bad, since there's more testing readily available for all American citizens, so they don't necessarily have to worry about the backlash in the media and the perception of them giving all their players testing. But that's something they have to do. The refs are going to need to be tested. There's a risk by bringing their families along if they want to, by having them all in one place. And then, of course, you have to talk about the travel between states, with getting all these teams into one state in Florida, where rather than where they are at their homes. Do they have to practice in their home facilities, or will they all be practicing in Disney? A lot of questions to be asked. And the other one that's interesting, too, is that a lot of the NBA execs are talking about having a regular season play in before they get to the playoffs. So how are they going to set up these regular season games with only 20, 22 teams before they get into the playoffs? In my opinion, I would rather we just go straight into a playoff system. We start on July 31st, when we have 16 teams across the NBA, ranking them based on the regular season records of where we ended at, and ranking it, combining the East and West, ranking them from 1 to 16, which I think we've seen a lot of different playoff mock-ups out there in social media, on ESPN, on CBS, where it would be in this situation. And I am all for this. There's also talk of having like a World Cup setting where you had different groups, and the groups would play in, and you'd have it much more in the World Cup's situation where they played each other twice. But I think that you just go straight into playoffs. You have 16 teams. And in fact, when I ranked them out, when you look at the league and the top 16 teams in the entire league, it breaks out to 8-8, East and West. So you don't have to worry about there being more Western teams or more Eastern teams. It's going to be straight down the middle even. And you just seed them based on where they finish. So if we were to have, again, the top 16 teams play in an NBA playoff setting right off the bat on July, 31st, here's how it goes down. Milwaukee at 1, LA Lakers at 2, Raptors 3, Clippers 4, Boston Celtics at 5, Denver Nuggets 6, Utah Jazz at 7, Miami Heat at 8, OKC at 9, the Houston Rockets at 10, Indiana Pacers at 11, Philadelphia 76ers at 12, Mavericks at 13, the Grizzlies at 14, the Brooklyn Nets at 15, almost said New Jersey. See, that's biasing me. And finally, rounding it off that top 16, you have the Orlando Magic. Now, of course, as you can see, there is a little higher, more of the Western teams are in the upper tier of that 1 through 16, with the East kind of rounding out the bottom. But it still evens out for 8-8. So I think you need to do it like that, and you have Milwaukee versus Orlando. You do LA versus the Nets. You do the normal seeding, and you do the normal playoffs. The other thing I'd like to see is that we create this a little more exciting, since we're going to create a large tournament for everyone to play in, not by conferences on either side, is we make it 3 games per series. Instead of having 7, having 5, we make it 3 games. You have to win the best 2 out of 3. That way we get closer to a March Madness feeling. We already missed out on the March Madness where it was 1 game and you win. And I think the NBA, while I understand you play 7 games so that, any anomalies, and if one team gets hot and they win a few, the better team ends up winning the series. But let's make it exciting. Let's get 3 games, because there are other concerns of bringing the NBA back on July 31st. And the main concern there is that if they were to have a bit of a regular season and the normal playoffs with 7 games for every series, is that it won't finish until maybe late October. And if the whole plan is to have the next season come back by Christmas time this year, that only gives them a month and a half to recover, maybe 2 months before they have to play the next season. And if you have all that concern to keep injuries, keep them healthy, then let's just make the playoffs faster. All we want is basketball. All we want is a makeshift championship. Of course, whoever wins a championship in this new format is going to have an asterisk. It just has to happen because of the way this season goes. And I think a lot of people talked about that. A lot of commentators have been on it. But that's just the fact of the matter, is that whoever wins this year, it's going to be under certain special circumstances. So why not make it a different playoff? Why not distinguish it from your regular NBA playoff? We don't have to try and recreate the normal NBA playoff setting. The Larry O'Brien Trophy is going to have an asterisk next to it for whatever team has it. So let's make it quick. Let's make it exciting. 3 games, that's amazing, because every game is in a game 5 through 7. We all of a sudden have this amazing opportunity to see every game with a do or die setting. That would put the intensity up for every game played. That would get the players really amped into it. It'd get the fans really engaged at all times, because there's not have to waste through the first few games of the series. We actually have a serious playoff atmosphere game 1 of every series. I would love to see that. 16 teams, seed them all down through 16, and you have a 3-game series for each. Why wouldn't we want that? It would make the playoffs so much more interesting and fascinating. I would love to see that happen. I think the NBA would too, because you'd also get higher viewership in every single game. And in a season where we're already risking and having a low possibility of revenue coming in because you don't have the game nights, Silver put out that there's 40% of the revenue projected every season comes from the game nights of the NBA games, of bringing in both the stadiums and the revenue on the TNT, ESPN for the big games throughout the week. 40% lost. So you already have a ton of revenue gone that's going to hurt the cap space of the next year. So why not try and capitalize on every single game that you can play on by making it the most exciting it possibly can be? Hell, if you were just going to have one game do or die every time, I don't think the players are in for that. But that would at least bring everyone to watch every single game that happens. Same as March Madness. But at least with 3 games, you shorten it the duration. You don't have to make it as long of a postseason as with 7 games. And everyone is on. You're going to have higher ratings during each game for TV, higher advertising costs. Everything goes up, and you can maybe start bridging that gap for the revenue. I think it's a win-win for everyone, from the players to the owners. And the players, they practice a lot to get ready, but they're not going to be as exhausted going into the next season. I think it's fair for everyone. Now, I will say, the thing I do like about having the 20 to 22 teams is that there are teams that were in playoff hunt and contention that would have had a chance if the regular season were to continue. So maybe you do, again, let's take it back to the March Madness format, something that all of us love to watch. Why don't you take the teams that, like we said, that were 6 games out from a playoff position, and you have a play-in for them to make it into the last 2 spots? We could have an 18-team postseason, and for the last 2 spots you have to play in to get into playoffs. So you give you have those top 6 teams, the teams that were out from the 6 games out. Maybe you just do the 4, so you have 20 teams, and those 4 teams have to play each other in order to get the last 2 spots in the playoffs. Also exciting. You have more games now to watch, a whole new system. And it also allows you to see if maybe there's something that can go forward and is viable for the regular season every year. I don't see why it could hurt. It looks like a great opportunity to test some things out and see how this goes in a very uncommon and a very, different year. Again, like we said, this is the most bizarre year. The season had to be canceled for a while. We're back to possibly having basketball return. Why not try something different? Why not experiment and do something out of the box? Because this is the time to do those things. We as a fan base, them as players, those as owners, are going to be more willing to do something different to change the whole game plan because it's a unique year. And again, I feel sorry for who wins it, but maybe you rename the championship this year. You do a different type of trophy. It's a massive tournament. You play it off that way. And I'm excited, too. If they were to do the 1 through 16 and just seed them that way, or 1 through 18 with the teams playing in, you could have 2 Western Conference teams playing at the finals. That's freaking cool, too. There's so much you can do right now with the opportunities you have. Why not take the chance to do it and make this a amazing moment for the NBA to just test things out and just try new venues and try and bring in new fans and everything. I think it's worthwhile. We'll see what we hear from the Board of Governors in the NBA after the Tuesday meeting. The next topic I want to get into, which I think is really fun, and it's just a fun thing to end the show on, because I see it all over social media. It's a new show on Fox. It's, I think other podcast shows have been talking about it too. I've been loving just hearing it. Is the show Ultimate Tag. I watched it, and I love this show. I love the concept. I love everything they're doing. I love the athletes. I love the arenas. It's fantastic. And the other reason, too, is because especially people my generation, of people my age group, this just harks back to the amazing Nickelodeon days with all the game shows. Your Legends of the Hidden Temple, your Double Dare, your Guts. I mean, this looks like it was taken out of a Nickelodeon playbook. And, and they were all successful, so why not? But I wonder why, this looks like a kid's game show. And I wish it wasn't. I get why they're doing adults, because there's a higher level of intensity. You don't have to worry so much about them getting injured. There's a lot that to be said. But I love this format. I love watching this. Hopefully they do have a spinoff for a kid's show in this one. But I do have some questions and some things that irked me a little bit about it. So one, why do we have this a mix of American Gladiator and parkour? Because I know we had obviously like the Flo, LaFleur, I think is the Geek, and so on, are free runners by trade, and that's what they do. Yet you then have these guys like the Instagram fitness dude, the beach guy, you had the CrossFitter, the Boss, and then you had like the giantess coming in, who are all just giant, bodybuilders or strength people. And I guess you have them because obviously it gives the competitors an edge there. But why aren't we just doing this as a parkour free runner pro show? Because, when we saw them go, like when we saw the Flo go, it was amazing. His body control is a way he can move around the track. Even with LaFleur, these are parkour free runner champions. These are people that know this course. And that was entertaining to see them just fly across the whole playing field. Like that's what's more entertaining. To see these kind of larger people who are still impressive and can bring in ratings, but, there's no real physicality to this game. There's no tackling. There's no, running into people. It's more about a finesse, and I don't think that it works with them. I just thought it was comical to see them running the course when they really were just, a little bit too big for it. Granted, they still get the players, but they're just not as quick, and they're not as, their agility on it is not the same. So I get it, you want to keep it just to make for the show's sake and for the showrunners to make it look good. I still just don't see why you have them out there. I think if you were to take all the best parkour and free runners in the world and make them the pros, and then you bring in amateur parkour and free runners or amateur, obstacle course runners, people from American Ninja Warrior, people from Beastmaster on Netflix, those type of athletes, and bring them in, you'd have a much more interesting, because it already exists. This type of tag, I get where they got the basis of it, is that this Ultimate Tag show, this is already existing around the world, right? You have those parkour and free running championships where the people have to tag each other, one person's it, one person isn't, and they're running around, these makeshift arenas, and they're all free runs parkour, so it's fascinating, and they're so quick, and it's incredible to see them move. I see where you get it from that, but why not just recreate that, but put on a bigger stage where you have professionals versus amateurs, and you do the same type of games. You do the dangling, the dome at the top that's 30 feet above. You do the kind of hidden temple, because again, this is very much Nickelodeon. Like it looks like Hidden Temple, where you have they have to climb up to the top in order to win in the final showdown. All that's great, but why not do pros versus amateurs? That's all I'm saying. I mean, if you want to do this American Gladiator type style where you have these big, scary looking people who can, knock you out, that's great. But I would have loved to see it more as a championship of free runners and everything. That's what would be great. I think it would have upped the intensity a lot. Now, I know you want to give the contestants a chance, but, I think there's a lot you could do there. But man, it was so great to watch this. It's just so much fun. It really made me feel like I was watching Nickelodeon again. The kind of vibe from the contestants, the skill level, having people like JJ Watt announcing it. That's just more fun, more amateurish. It was great. I would just love to see, again, like Nickelodeon should get all these, games back. Like the Legend of the Hidden Temple was one of my favorite shows watching growing up, and then Guts was another one. But I think that if you could do that again with something like this, it'd be fantastic. But, in a time where, there's so much uncertainty, in a time where things are really at a crossroads, when we talked about earlier with just the social unrest, the pandemic going on, just the uncertainty of people's jobs, the uncertainty of people's livelihood. It's great to have a show come out right now that can lighten the spirits, can make people look back to their childhood, can remind us of a game we all played, a game we all know the rules to, and have a game show that can give us a break from all of this craziness in our lives right now. I was excited to see it come out. I was excited to see it actually happen. And I think it's something we need more of right now. We need feel-good shows, feel-good competitions that people can watch, can feel like a kid again, and can excite and can, cheer on, especially without sports. Because I will say, some of those guys in there are incredible athletes. Like the parkour guys. Again, I'm going to go back to Flo. The Flo is my favorite. He was insane. His body control around it was just remarkable. Like, he goes through the air and nothing moves. Like, he's just able to contort his body at any moment. It's absolutely incredible. I mean, these guys are freak athletes. So I think there has to be a lot of respect and a lot of, support for them. It's pretty damn incredible. But I highly recommend the show. I think anyone listening, you got to check it out. Give it a watch. If you are, 28 to 30 years to 34 years old, I think you'll notice that it reminds you a lot of the shows you watched as a kid. So give it a shot. Start petitioning Nickelodeon to bring back these things too, since we know it can work on Fox. But definitely give it a shot. It's a great thing to watch while there's no sports happening. It's just great thing to do with all this craziness going on. So I think with that said, we're going to wrap up the show here again. I hope we gave you guys something worthwhile to listen to, some great content through all these trying times. I beg and implore people, again, going back to the message at the beginning, to stay safe, be responsible out there. To those looking at the riots and are not participating, to keep it with an open mind, understand that this is a reaction to something that has been ongoing for so many years and is just horrible to so many people in the community. To those listening, also might have an opportunity to go back to sports, exciting with basketball, and just try and escape through things like Ultimate Tag. We want to share all our love, open up love from the ChadBurn Show to everyone out there. We appreciate you all from listening in. We hope you're all staying healthy and safe through everything going on. We will be back next week with a new episode. Again, this episode airing Monday the 1st, but we cannot be back. We cannot be more excited to get back to things normal and to be recording back with Julian. But until then, we'll be reporting from the ChadBurn household. Thank you so much for listening in. Thank you for joining us. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube to check out whenever we release the video to these episodes. And follow us on Instagram to stay up to date for when episodes will come out. You again can listen to this on Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Apple iTunes, and obviously Spotify, or really any of the major platforms we listen to. We are there, so be sure to listen, subscribe, and stay up to date with us. If you want to reach out to me, I'm at chadburn.show@gmail.com. Again, chadburn.show@gmail.com. Send in your questions, things you'd like to talk about on the show. We're always happy to respond to our listeners there. Until next time, though, I want everyone to be happy, safe, healthy, and have a good evening and good night.